This is the Phylanice Nashe Experience Podcast. Hello, world, and welcome to the Phylanice Nashe Experience Podcast, an audio series of lighthearted and sometimes third-eye-opening conversations on entrepreneurship, leadership, and relationships from the African-American perspective. I am your host, Phylanice Nashe. Welcome. The racial wealth gap makes funding for Black entrepreneurs extremely difficult. And according to Crunchbase News, the first step towards solving this diversity problem is investing in minority founders. And we have a solution. It is called the Bridge Resource Partnership Fund. It was started and funded in 2018 by Nashville entrepreneur and philanthropist, Dr. Turner Nash Jr. And its sole purpose is to help Black-owned businesses bridge that funding gap. So today we are chatting with Dr. Nash, along with 3 community leaders who partnered with him on this effort. The impact of the fund will also talk about on its recipients, and most importantly, how you can apply for this funding. So let me introduce my guest. First, we have Dr. Turner Nash Jr., donor and creator of the fund. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Next, we have Amy Fair, Vice President of Donor Services at the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. Welcome, Amy.
Hey there.
And returning to the show, we have Harry Allen, co-founder and Executive Vice President of Studio Bank in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome back, Harry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, this is awesome.
And finally, we have Reverend Dr. John Faison, Senior Pastor of Watson Grove Baptist Church here in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome, Dr. Faison.
Hey, Phylanice, glad to be on. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Welcome to the show, everyone. And just a little bit of housekeeping. Audience members, thank you for tuning in. And make sure to place your comments and your questions in the chat. We will have someone responding to your posts and adding resources and links in the chat. So make sure you communicate with us that way. All right, so let's just jump into it. Topic 1, the why, the purpose behind the fund. We'll start with Dr. Nash. Dr. Nash, what is your personal why behind the fund? Why did you start this fund?
Yeah, it's really difficult to be an entrepreneur of any kind in this country. When you talk about the racial wealth gap, I think it was an article in Time Magazine, maybe 2018, that basically read that the average Black family is 223 years behind the average white family as it relates to accumulating personal wealth. And the 2 vehicles that are used most frequently to make up that gap are going to be the ownership of real estate and the ownership of stocks and bonds. And what I arrived at was that there was no way for me to either get or attain real estate or stocks or bonds unless I had money. And the only way I could get enough money to do that was to be an entrepreneur. So the why for me is really important because I watched my mother be a single mom and put herself through school and, go from, trying not to curse, go from not such a great job to the next not so great job until she was able to build up and be the professional that she always wanted to be. So in my mind, in order for us to be able to build our own family and try to help build our community, we needed to put money aside in reserves for people who wanted to be entrepreneurs, that wanted to basically make up that time and close that racial wealth gap within their family based on entrepreneurship. So this is very important to me. That's my why as to why we created this fund.
And can you also speak to, Turner, about your experience as an entrepreneur trying to attain funds, even when you had contracts in place, which would be a no-brainer for institution to fund, but that wasn't the situation. Can you elaborate on that?
So to your question, man, I've got some Forrest Gump type stories. I'll share one with you today, which is as an entrepreneur, I'd created a piece of technical hardware and complementary software for a solution. I had a customer that had given me a $6 million contract, and I'd gone to different banks. I won't mention any of them by name, but I'd gone to different banks around town, and they all declined me. And one was so nice to have sent me a letter that read, We can't fund you because you've never done this before. And my thought there as an entrepreneur was, well, I am good enough to win this competitive bid for services. I am great enough to actually produce the product, but because I've never done it before on a large scale, that's the reason why I've declined. How will I ever be able to perform on a large scale and then to become competitive in the world? I once had a mentor that said, a lot of times the best way to kill a bear is to kill it when it's a cub. And that always stuck with me, because the stronger I get, the less likely I am to have to depend on other people and systems for the money that it takes to grow my business to make the impact that I mentioned in the last question. I did find a bank who I'd gone over with a friend of mine, and he goes, man, they're going to give you the money because they know me. And I was like, well, you don't have a lot of money. He goes, it doesn't matter. And this is a story for another day. He goes, my white skin is worth at least $100,000. I was like, what? And he goes, man, look, you got a PhD. I don't. I just barely graduated high school. We're in the same elevator going to the same banking meeting because I have the relationship. And I thought, wow, that's pretty incredible. So I go into this bank. I walk into the lobby, and he goes, we're not going in there. We're going upstairs. And I was like, man, I didn't know there was an upstairs, right? So we go up to some floor. I think it was like the 14th floor, nondescript rooms. It was like a long hallway, like a casino hotel. No numbers on the doors. There's a table, chairs on both sides. I go in. He says, sit here. 3 bankers walk in, sit down on the other side of the table, and they say, what are you trying to do? I say, this is what I'm doing. Here's my contract. Guy says, give me your driver's license. I say, okay. Hand him the driver's license. He comes back 20 minutes later. He says, you're going to be approved for this loan. The documents are going to show up at your house in 1 to 2 business days. That was the end of the meeting. I didn't have to show financials. I didn't have to show a lot. And what I learned was a relationship goes a long way. And that is one of the banking stories behind why I wanted to start this fund, because there's so many things that plague an entrepreneur. One of them is lack of financial literacy when you're first coming up. You learn a lot of these things in business as you grow. But one thing that I didn't know was how to keep, I say a proper P&L, one that a bank could actually use. I didn't know that I had to list my attorney and my CPA and my landlord and all these other relationships that I had to keep in line in order to get what I'm going to call traditional funding. So I'll stop there with that story. But that is one story where it just shows you, man, if you don't have a relationship with someone that can be in your corner, it's going to be a long road trying to find financing the traditional route.
Thank you for that, Turner. Those are very important points, and I'm sure that those are similar experiences that are shared amongst the Black entrepreneurship or Black founder community. So, Harry, you're up. You are our banker on the call, and can you just give us a little insight, a little bit more into what Turner was talking about, the systemic why, there's lack of funding for Black founders?
Yeah, and this is something that Studio Bank's been really interested in since we started the bank about 3.5 years ago. But what we know is that on average, only 47% of business loan applications by Black founders are approved at banks. There was also reporting here locally in Nashville by a series of entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, that told their stories similar to Dr. Nashe's, of being declined by different financial institutions. And so we were interested in how do we, even within the regulatory framework and guidelines, which make it very difficult in terms of access to capital from a traditional bank, but how do we partner with others and be more creative in our approaches to serving Black founders in particular. And so was really interested in the fund that he had created and reached out to see what we could do together.
Thank you, Harry, for that insight. So let's move into what the fund actually does. What does the fund do? And this is for everyone. So we talked a little bit about the solution that it's providing, which is bridging that gap for Black funders. But can we talk a little bit more about who the fund is for, and then the numbers, fund by the numbers, like the stats how many businesses have received it, and the total money lent. So let's talk specifically about who the fund is for. We'll go with I'll go with Amy on this one first to lead that off.
Sure. The fund is for entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs in the community. And one of the things that I loved when Turner expressed his goal with this fund at the beginning, he really talked about those Main Street entrepreneurs, right? He said he's not trying to invest in someone who's just looking for a big payout at the end. These are your neighbors, your people that go to church with you, people that their businesses are on the street corner. They may help revitalize a neighborhood. Those things, those Main Street entrepreneurs. And there really is a definition for that. If you look at some of the national studies on making investments in small businesses and communities and the impact it has. So that is something that was particularly important and resonated with us at the Community Foundation, because our goal is really just how do we improve that quality of life in this Middle Tennessee community, and strengthening neighborhoods, strengthening economic development, and strengthening communities, particularly communities of color, is something that we do in our grant making. And this new idea of making investments was something a little different, but something that was an example that had been done by many national foundations with some different rules and regulations, because one of the things, and Turner always tells me he appreciates this, is that we try to find a solution that always keeps us within the guardrails that we're doing everything right. And so this fund is for entrepreneurs in the Nashville, Middle Tennessee area, Black entrepreneurs that have started a business, move forward, but maybe they have that roadblock because they need just a small push over the hurdle. That's really what the Bridge Resource Partnership and some of the partnerships with churches that we've initiated, and hopefully the example of 3 organizations that we've helped so far, kind of in our pilot phase, will be something that we can really roll out much more significantly in 2022.
Great. That was great background information. Anyone else want to add anything to that question about who the fund is for? I think we've narrowed it down that this is for Black founders in Middle Tennessee. Turner, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, this was hard to put together, right? Like, this is a lot of pieces over a long time of meeting and bumping into people, and the Lord putting people in your life at the right time that might have a piece to this. So, when I originally brought this up to Amy, we didn't have any of the other pieces, right? So, it was very important to me that we reach out and find a community bank and somebody that cared enough to be involved. It was very important to reach out and find someone in our faith community that really cared and had the ability and the want to take on the responsibility of participation. So, since 2018, I'll say this is 2022, we maybe brought on a partner a year from 2018. And then finally we had the super team here, right around 2020, 2021. But then it was time to fund it. And then it was time to also find people who could utilize the funds, but go through a very specific process that allows fairness, but certainty that they're going to be taken seriously. So, I didn't want it to just sound like we were just 4 or 5 people who came together, just haphazardly to say, hey, let's do something great. Like, it took a lot of work and a lot of understanding across these organizations, because we are bigger than just our individuality here. Everyone on this call represents an organization that has bought into the thought that Nashville deserves better. And we bought into the thought that we can participate in creating a solution that makes Nashville better by creating a more level playing field for those smaller entrepreneurs to become mid-level and larger entrepreneurs. So that I would just like to add that on top of what Amy has expressed.
Thank you. And this is a perfect segue into who each one of you are and your roles in this fund. In the intro, I talked about Dr. Nashe being the brain behind it and the funds behind it. Amy spoke a little bit about the Community Foundation. That is where the fund resides. And that's where the grants come from. But now we want to talk about our other two partners, Studio Bank and Watson Grove Baptist Church. How does a church fit into all of this? And what's Studio Bank's role? So I'm going to jump down to Dr. Faison. Dr. Faison, you're senior pastor at Watson Grove Baptist Church. But some churches, and some people didn't know this, is some churches have what are called CDCs, or community development type of entities, which are for-profit churches. So what's your role in all of this, and Watson Grove's role?
As a faith community that's part of this team, first of all, we're excited to be a part of it, and it fits and aligns right with our values, who we are. Generosity is a core value of who we are, but also outreach to the community, being connected and providing opportunities not only for the transformation of souls, but also the transformation of systems are really what inhibit many of entrepreneurs of color from advancing in this space. And if we can create a partnership that helps to alleviate some of those barriers, it's important. Dr. Nash talked about community and relationship. I firmly believe that when God wants to bless you, God doesn't send you stuff, He sends you people. That relationships are really the currency that make progress, success, and even transformation happen. So for us to be a part, our CDC in particular, Grove Community Development Corporation, to be a part of this effort that helps to screen, vet, and even really provide the opportunity for these entrepreneurs to really get a foot in the door in terms of funding and getting started is a major effort, and something that absolutely aligns with who we are as a community and who we are as a church.
Thank you. Harry, so what's Studio Bank's role in this partnership? Can you speak a little?
I can, yeah, and I'm really proud of the collection of minds that came around, and for sure Dr. Nash's initial vision and fund. But he spoke about the importance of a relationship with a bank and a banker. And in terms of access to capital, there are other grant programs that simply write a check to the business owner, which is impactful. The way that the Bridge Resource Partnership Fund is structured is it guarantees a loan provided by a bank. And what that does is puts the bank in relationship with the Black founder, so that as their needs evolve and as they go from that small business to medium-sized business, they have a contact and someone who's walking that path with them that can serve their needs on an ongoing basis. And so that's the brilliant piece, I think, about this fund in particular, is that it solves the capital piece, but the bigger piece is not the financial capital, it's also the social capital that Dr. Faison mentioned as well, that it is about relationships. And so we're really proud to be providing, the conduit for the flow of funds, but also be in partnership from a banking standpoint with these founders.
And that's very important. And just in general with entrepreneurship, establishing a relationship with a community bank is one of the things that I find is of value, because you do develop that relationship as you grow. Mm-hmm. So I want to move to speaking on the people who have already received grants. So we're not talking about a fund that has evolved over time. We are talking about an active fund that has actually funded the dreams of Black funders, several Black funders here in Middle Tennessee. So I'll either turn it over to Amy or Harry. Can we talk a little bit about the number of businesses that have received funds, the total amount of money lent, and if you can give a little bit about the specifics of those businesses? Were they Black females, Black males, what business stage they were in, and what the money was used for? I'll open the floor. Harry, you want to take that one first, or Amy?
So as I mentioned, and Turner mentioned, we've really wanted to work through the details, focus on all the partners. And so far, there have been 3 investments into organizations, all very different in nature. They have been 3 that have been led by females. The first one that was invested in, and again, part of the education or information that we definitely want to share is that we didn't strike a check to any of these groups. What happened was we, through an application process, and I know we'll talk about that later, through an application process, had a review that included Harry, myself, and Dr. Faison. Turner wasn't involved, and again, that's because of some of the rules and regulations, and we want to keep this all in its proper place so that we can keep it going for the long haul. But the application was reviewed, and once it was determined that this was somebody that we wanted to make an investment in, the Bridge Resource Partnership made a grant to the Watson Grove Baptist Church, the CDC, the Grove CDC, and then the Grove CDC transferred money into an account at Studio Bank to, as Harry said, guarantee that loan. It doesn't take a lot of money, right? We're not talking putting in 6 figures, 7 figures in a business. What really the sweet spot has been, and the range that Turner talked about from the onset, was a $20,000 to $30,000 investment. That's really all it's taken for all of these individuals to be able to access credit that help propel their businesses forward. So in making those investments, there have been 3 investments of $30,000 in each of the 3 initial businesses that were invested in. The first one is Latham's Lighthouse Wedding and Special Events, which is up in Hendersonville, special events location. Energy Juice and Yoga, which opened a storefront on Buchanan Street, and Triluna Wellness, that is one of those organizations that's in the right space at the right time, addressing mental health during these last 2 years that we've gone through.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if I could add, each of those, I believe, have been able to not only open their storefront or provide the programming from a mental health standpoint, or open a wedding and events venue, but also leverage that capital to more impact. And so Energy Juice and Yoga has won a couple of pitch competitions for additional capital, and had this investment, not been made to put that initial wind in her sail, she may not have been able to build on that momentum. And so it does have a multiplier effect as well.
And I also want to remind people that this is a loan, and it does have to be repaid, and the repayment goes back into the church. Pastor Faison, do you want to talk a little bit about the CDC and how that fund will then regenerate additional, resources for others in the community?
Sure. Well, the CDC's mission and really values are about providing child development and family support services and economic security and access to affordable housing, reducing health and environmental risks to children. That's kind of the thrust of our CDC. And so this fits right in there with economic security, I believe, really providing opportunities for these entrepreneurs, using the CDC as a vehicle to get them started in this space. And then when they take loan, of course, it goes back and it becomes regenerative. It ends up impacting someone else that comes along. I think that is a fundamental piece of Dr. Nashe's vision when it comes to the growth partnership, in that not only do persons receive help, but now repaying the loan becomes the opportunity for them to pay it back, and then create the space and the opportunity for another person to come along. If it's the concept of giving, it shall be given back to you. You know, the concept of reciprocity. I've received, and now I'm responsible for helping others. I think it's a key component, and really what makes it special.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to add anything before we jump to the application process?
Sure. I think the only thing I want to say is that this is really about creating a network, just like Dr. Faison just said. This money will come back. So the whole idea is these initial entrepreneurs that receive the funds and are successful and pay back their loans will be part of the network that really builds up this idea of supporting Black entrepreneurs in our community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
there's a double and a. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to add when we talk to the entrepreneurs about that element of once your loan is repaid, it goes back to a fund and helps another entrepreneur. I mean, their eyes kind of light up that, to Dr. Faison's point, they're so grateful for the assistance, but also to be a part of paying it forward is really, really meaningful.
Dr. Nash?
Yeah, there are a lot of double and triple wins here. I'm hoping that it draws people closer to our faith community. I'm hoping that this draws people closer to our banking community by way of great stewards that we have in Dr. Faison and Harry. I'm hoping that it also illustrates the point that the Community Foundation itself as an organization is something that you can apply to your everyday business informatics, if you will. So, just as I was listening to Harry speak it, I was on the phone one day with a banker and I was like, hey, I was trying to do something. And he goes, let me see how much relationship you have with us. And I thought, whoa, well, what? So relationship is money, right? Like I thought we were cool. Like we go out for coffee and, but he said, let me see how much relationship you have with us. I want these entrepreneurs to know that when it comes to being a business owner and growing your business, cash is king, but I'm telling you, nothing beats the Lord. You have to have these relationships and be in these circles in order to fully exercise the blessing of the money. It's not $100,000. It's not $1 million. But man, when I was coming up, one lady gave me $1,000 to help me get to a trip I needed to get to go see a guy I needed to get to make a deal. And you know what she said? The Lord told me to give it to you. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be a lot of money. It just has to be that piece of money at the right time to take you to the next level. Mm-hmm. And I feel like these folks that are on this call care enough about you as an entrepreneur and enough about Nashville to make this a positive process for you to go through. That's all I wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's dive into the application process. Amy, you kind of broached this topic a little earlier about the review process, but who can apply for this loan? We talked about it being a Black-owned business from Middle Tennessee, but how do they get in touch with someone? Do they first be denied for a traditional loan before they're eligible? I'll open the floor to Harry and Amy to talk about this one.
Right. I'll kind of lead over to Harry because I think one of the important pieces is you mentioned about what stage of business are people in. This is not somebody with, they just had a great idea and they want to move forward. They have to have some momentum and movement forward. And Harry can probably speak about that as the banker who sees a lot of people come in for loans. There has to be something behind it. So far, the application has really been initiated from a standpoint of seeing someone that's ready for that stage and then referring them to filling out the application. And we'll be blowing that up even more in 2022, but I'll let Harry talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about blowing that up in 2022 as well. But yes, Amy is exactly right. These loans are meant for established businesses. So usually 2 to 3 years of operating experience. And for the referrals that the bank is making into the program, we're obviously checking that box, but referrals can come straight to the community foundation or through the Grove CDC. But they're not startup businesses, and this isn't the initial capitalization of the business. It is an idea that has been tested, so to speak. And we do ask for financials. So, if it's a 3-year-old business, we're going to ask for the last 3 years of financial statements, income, and statement and balance sheet. And so there's a little bit of screening to make sure that the funds are meant to get an established business to the next level, but it's not an incubator or an accelerator of a startup business, if that makes sense. That's important for all of the parties here. I think we shared that vision as well, and making sure these funds flow to Main Street entrepreneurs, as Amy mentioned before.
Dr. Nash, I'm going to ask you to chime in here as well about who makes a good referral candidate. You may want to speak a little more to the stage of business area and being past the validation stage. Can you chime in a little bit more about that candidate, a good candidate?
Yeah, I follow this. I follow this theory. It's called Moore's Chasm, MOORES, Moore's Chasm. It basically is a bell curve of how the average business goes from ideation through the initial set of innovation, and then there's a chasm that you have to get through in order to get to your early adopters. And once you get to your early adopters, you generally hit a revenue stream. I would hope that whoever's watching this and is interested in being a participant in this, whether it be as an investor in your community, a donor, or a business that's looking for funding, that you look that up. This is not meant for somebody that's in the ideation phase. This is not meant for somebody who might be behind on their bills and they're looking for a PPP loan. This isn't that. This is for someone who has proven their concept. This is for someone that's in a growth phase that needs to get to that next step, that would be going to the bank anyway. Someone that would go to the bank anyway, with or without this fund, to maybe get a business line of credit or a loan to further their business in the community. This is for. Again, it's not for everybody. It's going to be for a very select few that are just at that level that and I may be able to look at some of these businesses and say, yeah, but I'm not the deciding factor. I'm merely a guide as to this is what the program is meant for, and these are the people we're trying to help. But that's who it is. It's going to be somebody on Main Street, a mom and a pop, that may be running a lifestyle business that wants to scale into the next phase of whatever it is that they're doing. Mm-hmm. That is who this is meant for. And you have to be strong enough to return the money so that future generations of entrepreneurs can depend on those funds being there and being accessible, just as they were for generation number one.
Mm-hmm.
True.
If I can add here, I'm not a banker. The CDC side is we don't do the finance part. We're really looking for two things: proven impact. You've already engaged and made progress, and as Dr. Nash referred to, are looking to scale. So proven impact, a history, a track record impact, and then potential impact. And what you are doing, is it feasible for advancement and growth? And so that's kind of what the CDC is looking for. We're looking for businesses that make a difference. Not just make money, but make a difference. And if you can fit that in to what you're doing, not only will it become profitable, but the level of joy that comes with making a difference and profit. And we just think that makes sense for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And I think it's important for our listeners to know, where they fall in that spectrum of entrepreneurship. And, and the other thing is too, be afraid to reach out. I mean, each one of these individuals on the panel can make a recommendation or make a referral, and we will get to their contact information in a second. But you can reach out to any one of us, and talk it over and see where you land. And of course, you have Dr. Nash, who is as an entrepreneur and a mentor as well. And so, maybe you're not ready now, but maybe in the next year or so. But I say all that to say any one of us can be contacted if you're interested in applying for the fund. So what about the future of this fund? It took a while to get here. And so where are we going? Are we fundraising efforts? Are we inviting other banks and church partners? What kind of growth are we looking for as far as applications? So I'll start with Dr. Nash. What are the fundraising efforts? I know that you've chatted about wanting to do some fundraising, and Breaking Bread is the name of the fundraiser that you'll be developing for this. But what kind of pot are you looking for in fundraising for this? How do you want to grow it?
Yeah, so this gathering today is one of the first, maybe the second time this has been mentioned publicly. So my goal would be to fund a deal a month. I don't know if there's that much traction in the neighborhood, in the community, but that would be my goal. One deal a month, 25 to 30,000 for this year. The effort is already funded. The longevity and the sustainability of this is something that we really need to sort of focus on for 2023. I would love to have, and it's just an idea. COVID was hot when we came up with this one, so we kind of put the pause on it, where we would have these dinners where we would basically just tell our story to the community leaders and want them to privately or have their corporations publicly fund or make donations to the community foundation for this fund. I wanted to make sure that we had enough initiative that was taken, enough feedback from the businesses that were in what I'm going to call round one, so that people could go touch, smell, and feel that these businesses are real and it's something that they can support, and then come back and make the pot double or triple. So, my goal for next year would be if this year we're at 300,000 minimum. I think, we're really early in the year because it's just January going into February. I'd want to raise at least another 500,000 for this year to guarantee next year. So if we could have a cascading effect, I'd like to double the number of businesses engaged year over year. That would be my goal. It's not a 10%, it's not a 15%. I'm trying to go 100% year over year. So that's really aggressive, but I think because the dollar amount is so nominal and modest, that it shouldn't be that difficult to do. We just need more people to come into the fold, and that's the call to action, which is why we're doing this today. Like we don't get on Zooms and do these calls just because we want to. There's a need in this town. Everybody can see it. You can read the paper, you can look at the news. You don't see a lot of Black folks in control positions of businesses that are making decisions, and that's what we need to change. So again, 100% year over year. If it's 10 this year, it's got to be 20 next year. Year after that, it's got to be 40. Then it's got to be 80. That's the goal. The piece is we do need to get together, because in that community that we've all spoken about, sometimes people just don't know how to give. I didn't know how to do it for 3 or 4 years until this group came to pass. So now that this group is here, this is a very viable and valuable way for people to give, and they know exactly where the money is going.
Exactly. Anyone else? Thank you. And those are very great goals for growth. If someone is interested in donating to the fund, Amy, how can they get to a donation link there at the Community Foundation to donate?
Sure. Our main website is cfmt.org, and if you search for the Bridge Resource Partnership, you will find it there. We are working on some additional promotional items so that people will be able to access it. But of course, calling me at the Community Foundation is another way that I want to make it really easy for people to give, because this is a great investment. And they can call me at 615-321-4939. And I'd love to chat about donations and really about this in general, because it's exciting.
And I'm adding all of this into the chat as we go along. So Amy's number and the Community Foundation website is there in the chat. Um, and as I mentioned previously, any one of us can be contacted if someone is interested in applying. Amy just provided her contact information. I will just go down the line. Harry, Allen, how can someone interested get in contact with you?
Yes, please reach out. Harry.Allen, ALLEN, at studiobank.com is my email. My phone number is 615-338-9169.
And that's the number that gets right to you, right, Harry?
It rings my cell and my office simultaneously. Yes.
That's the real number, y'all. Okay, and I'm placing this in the chat as we go along. Dr. Nashe, how can the listeners get in touch with you?
They can reach me at tnashe, TNASHE, at recover-health.com.
Great. And Dr. Faison, how can the listeners reach you?
Absolutely. Email pastor, PASTOR, at thegrovenash.org. That's email. Best way to do it.
Great. So we're about to close. I want to make sure that if we have any final thoughts or words of wisdom, that we leave it here. This is a very inspirational conversation and providing a needed resource. Dr. Nashe, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you want to leave with the audience?
Hey, this is an amazing group of people that I do believe it's an amazing group of people that did come together through divine intervention. There are certain pieces and processes that are in place that had to take time. I liken it to, running a play in football. Like, there are a lot of routes here that had to be developed in order for this to work. So I just want to thank everybody on this call for participating and having interest, and probably sitting on more calls than you wanted to, and more podcasts than you want to. But I think that the message is so important. We putting our money on it, right? Like, we're not out here in the streets being whimsical with our time, our talent, or our treasure. And because of that, I really believe that, more people should be engaged in this, either as a funder or as a business owner. You have multiple ways to participate. Get involved sooner rather than later. This is for our community. Thank you, Phylanice.
Thank you. And Amy, any final thoughts or words of wisdom?
I think this is really exciting. And one of the things for the last 25 years, the Community Foundation has a women's fund. And we've talked a lot about how one of the priorities has been creating economic self-sufficiency opportunities, and really how that supports a community. This is in the same vein, right? We talked about it. It just so happens that our first 3 investments were in women. But there's a lot out there that says how important it is to invest in women, because you bring the whole community up. We want both men and women, and we think economic self-sufficiency for those Main Street entrepreneurs only strengthens our community and makes it better.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Dr. Faison, last words.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the coming together of these personalities and partnerships. Grateful for the faith grounding that kind of sits at the base of what we're doing. Excited about the potential that it has. Double scalability each year is an audacious goal. But those, you don't go big if you don't have big goals. So we're excited about that, appreciate it, and just excited to be a part of the effort.
Thank you. All right, Harry, you have the last word.
I don't know how to
close us out.
Close
right.
out.
Well, I think, just listening to this conversation gets me excited all over again that we all came together to do this. I know that Davidson County is in the bottom 5% of all U.S. counties for mobility, economic mobility of its citizens. And so Turner mentioned, economic mobility usually comes from owning a home or owning stocks and bonds or starting a business. And so I think, we can't solve all of the world's problems, but we've decided this is something that we can do and it's worth it. And the long conference calls and hashing out the details was all a lot of fun, and I'm grateful to be a part of it for sure.
Well, I want to thank each and every one of you, with the four of you, Dr. Nash, Amy, Harry, and Dr. Faison, for joining me today. I want to give a big thank you also to the audience for tuning in to today's episode. You can find the link to the Bridge Resource Partnership Fund, all of the social media and emails that were mentioned by my guests, and their contact information in today's episode's show notes. So you can go to my website, PhylaniceNasheExperience.com, or jump on the YouTube channel, click on this episode. You'll find the show notes as well there too. So once again, thank you to each of you for coming on. It was important to get this message out, and I appreciate each one of you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
And I want to make sure for everyone to subscribe, rate, and share the Phylanice Nashe Experience podcast on Apple Podcast and YouTube. That's how you let me know that you like the show. Make sure you follow me on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Phylanice Nashe. My call to action to everyone is to donate to, apply to, and partner with the Bridge Resource Partnership Fund. We need to close this funding gap for Black-owned businesses. And on the next episode, we're going to chat with several of the recipients of the Bridge Resource Partnership Fund. You don't want to miss that one. Until next time, everyone stay safe, stay well. Peace.